Mind of Bryson presents Code Nibbles number 0. In this video, or this Code Nibbles, I will be presenting Python 3 lists. And Code Nibbles is a new series that I'm thinking of doing, in which I try to explain some coding related topics in a shorter amount of time. So hopefully this will be under 10 minutes. So what are the Python lists? Well, let's first talk about lists in general. So lists are like a container with smaller compartments. And you can see my graphic here. And compartments are numbered starting with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And each compartment can hold a value. And values can be changed later on. So I'm changing the hexagon into a heart. Compartments also have an order. So you start from 0, and you go to 1, then you go to 2, then you go to 3. That's pretty self-explanatory, because that's how numbers work. So how do you use lists in Python? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you right now. So you can create a list with square brackets. And in this example, in this text example right here, I'm showing size equals 2 square brackets. This is actually creating an empty list. But if you want to initialize the list with a few values, you do something like this. So like size equals 3, 4, 5, 6. So you separate the compartments sort of things with commas. And the compartment numbers are called index numbers. So these are called index numbers. And you can access values by putting an index number inside of square brackets. But please keep in mind that you need to keep track of the length of your list, or else there will be an error if you try to put in an index number that is outside the range of the length. So that would be like putting 5 inside of the square brackets, even though the length of your list is only 3. So this is an example of accessing a value in the list. So the index number can also be negative, and negative index numbers will start from the end of the list, and it will start counting from -1. So in this case, -2 would actually be this pentagon. And then you can also put a range inside of your square brackets. So this will return the range from 1 to 3. And this will actually return a list of the values from 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, the last value you put will actually be not included. So this will go from index 1 to index 2, and then not to index 3. And also you could put negative ranges inside of the square brackets. So this will be -3 to -1. So this is -1, this is -2, this is -3. So it'll be the square and the pentagon. And you could also change values by accessing and assigning a new value. So it's just like how you access it, and you put that on the left side of the equal sign. And on the right side, you put the value. So it's kind of just like having the accessing part as your variable name, and then the value is on the right. So how do you loop through lists? That's what I'm going to tell you now. So you could loop through elements with a for loop, and you will do something like for I inside, and then colon, and then print I. So I in this case is actually a variable. And when you do something like this, the elements in the list will be put inside of I and will then be used inside the block. So the first time you execute it, triangle, or I guess like triangle will be inside of I. And then the second time you run it, you will put square inside of I, and then it will print square. And then this will print triangle, and this will print square. And then this time it will print pentagon. And then this time it will print hexagon. So you could also do, what you could also do is that you could loop through indexes with a for loop. So you do something like for I in range of length of sides, colon, print the I index of sides. Okay, so the length function returns the length of the list that you give. So in this case, it will be 4. And what the range function does is that it returns numbers from 0 up to, but not including, the value that you pass in. So since the length of sides is 4, this range function is actually going to return 0 to 3. And that's perfectly coincides with the index numbers that we have. So what this is going to do is that first 0 is going to go inside of I, and then you're going to print triangle because triangle is the 0th element of sides. And then 1 is going to go into I, and you're going to print square, and 2 is going to go into I, and you're going to print pentagon, and then 3 is going to go into I, and you're going to print hexagon. So you could also do a similar thing with a while loop. So you'll have I as your counter, and while I is less than the length of the sides, you will print ith index of sides, and then you will increase I by 1. So it's pretty similar to the for loop. So 0 goes into I, and then you print triangle, and then 1 goes into I, and then you print square. 2 goes into I, and then you print pentagon, and then 3 goes into I, and then you print hexagon. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you how to add or remove elements from the list. If you want to add something to the end of the list, you would use the append function. So it will be something like sides.append hexagon, and it will be something like that. You add hexagon to the end of the list. And then you could also insert values into the list with the insert function, which is pretty self-explanatory. So first you put the index that you want the new value to be at, and then the value you want to put there. So we could do something like sides.insert 2 and then hexagon. So hexagon is going to be inside of index 2 now. So that's what it's going to be like afterwards. And then you could also remove from a list with the remove function. So you will put remove and then the value that you want to remove. And this will remove the first instance of the value inside the list. So if you had duplicates, it will remove the first one. So if we do sides.remove hexagon, hexagon's going to go away, and that's actually going to shrink the length back to 3, which makes the max index 2. So that's basically the introduction that I'm going to give to lists. In the next Code Nibbles, I will probably go over more of the functions that go along with lists. So be sure to subscribe and like the video and share with your friends and family because that will really help out the channel. Have a nice day and see you in the next one.